Cool, let's see how we're going. Hi, it's David Shummy at Fix a Frame in Brisbane, and I just thought I would live stream this morning. We've got a little degree certificate that we're framing, and I just thought I'd run through a few things, because if you've got a degree and you're thinking of getting it framed, there are a few things that need to be looked at in terms of protecting your degree, making sure it lasts. So we've got one here from QUT in Brisbane, but obviously there are a lot of different universities. The most important thing is that that document is treated with some respect, because usually it's not able to be replaced. You can only ever get an extract. So if you've recently qualified, or even if you've got an old qualification and you want to frame it well, you should have a look at some of the techniques that we're going to look at today. If you want to frame it yourself, by all means, you can do that. We do teach people how to frame, but something where you want it to protect the degree and make sure that it lasts, it's probably best to take it to a professional. So if you need to see us, we're at fixaframe.com.au. We're out on Brisbane's south side at Mount Cravat. Otherwise, if you want to learn, you can always go to pictureframeclass.com. Now, we've got a bit of noise going on in the background, but today we're running live. We've got a live workshop happening. Everybody's full at work. So I just thought I'd show you this. I'm going to put the camera down onto the table now, and you can see some of the things that we do when we're framing your degrees and the care that we take to make sure that things don't get harmed through the framing process. So if you've got any questions, by all means, ask them in the comments. I'll always look at those comments and I'll answer them. We also do a lot of training through framersclub.com. If you ever want to access the archive and learn how to do frame anything, we got a ton of good stuff inside Framers Club. So look, enough of the plug. We'll dive right in, have a bit of a look at what we're doing today in terms of framing a degree. So I'll just turn the camera around, bear with me a sec, get it down onto the table. Yeah, we've got a little bit of background noise with the saw cutting at the moment, but hopefully you're picking up sound pretty clearly. So phones might go different things, but that's because we're live. So I've got myself and this foam backing just to add an extra layer of protection. And so I've already cut a picture frame, and we'll talk a little bit about the special type of glass that I've got in that frame when we get to it. But in the meantime, now we're going to have a look at probably one of the most important things, which is basically hinging or mounting this piece so that the certificate doesn't get harmed. Now, usually, for example, with this QUT certificate, they've actually, at the award ceremony, they've given it to you in a folder. Sometimes it's given to people rolled up, and other times it is provided flat. It's pretty important that you look after your degree from that point of view, that you don't want to particularly handle it a lot. You want to bring it down to a professional, and I would suggest at that point in time as well, getting some scanned copies made. So we can always scan your degree, so you've got copies to send off to employers. Bear in mind, you may need to get that degree, those copies certified by a JP if you're wanting to submit them, and people want to make sure that you haven't copied and via Facebook. So whichever platform you're on, by all means, please ask questions, leave comments. It's quite good for us to know what you guys want to learn. But this time we're having a look at degrees. So this is just flat. We're not going to glue this down in any way. What we're going to do is actually do a process which is hinging the degree itself. So I just want to pop it out of the way, and I also want this backing, which I'll leave it on the backing. We just pop it out of the way on the backing for a sec. So I have a piece of cotton white acid-free backing board, which is like a regular mounting board, and this is going to be the back section of the piece, and this section is just part of the mat board. So this is a really simple mounting. It's simple coloration. They're just using the blue and silver, but there are obviously a lot of different decorative options you've got if you want to enhance the degree. But to have a look at just how the mounting process happens, normally we'll use the backing piece and this mat board together, and I lay them out like so. And then I use something which is a professional framing tape, which is the Filmoplast P90. So this one is one of the industry standards in terms of tape. And I'm going to use a length of that first of all as a hinge. And this hinge is going to go between the backing board and the mat board. Because mostly when you fix a degree into a frame, when you fix it into a matting, you want to hinge that piece so that it's actually hinged to the backing rather than the mat board. And so at this stage, this just folds like a little book. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the outer mat board to it. Some framers will use different techniques here. Some glue the mat boards together before they start. Other people will actually stick them together afterwards. We have various double-sided tapes. This one I'm going to use just a thin double-sided hand-applied tape, but there are different ways of gluing these together. We just want something that's going to not come apart over time. What I've done, I've just put the double-sided actually on the reverse of the outer mat and relatively close to the window because I don't want any buckling or anything to happen. So our outer colour is going to go on top of this silver piece, and that's just going to give us that little so what we've got there at that point is this little 5mm of silver showing, and it's hinged like a book to the backing. Now at that point, we're going to pop our certificate into the matting, and we can open this and close it like a book. So that allows us to adjust the positioning. So depending on how we've got it, we can get that piece in position. And we've got a little weight, little leather weight that doesn't hurt the piece, just to hold it in place. And one thing I'd like to probably check before I actually finally get it in position, I look at it visually, but occasionally it does pay to actually measure that distance and make sure that your piece is central. So just do a quick check. Now, when I'm happy with where that is, I'm going to turn this around so that it's actually upside down, so I can get to the end where I need to work. Because usually what happens is we want the certificate itself to hang down from the top of the mat as such, or from the top of the certificate, and that enables the certificate to move within the frame, and it helps prevent buckling over time. So when we've got our certificate in position, we then open our little window up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use our tape to make a couple of what are called T-hinges. And the T-hinge is basically two pieces of tape put together to make like the shape of a letter T. And in this example, one piece is going to go up underneath the degree itself, and the second piece is going to overlap and go down onto the backing board itself. Now you can use, some people use Japanese paper hinges. It's an archival framing method, but with a certificate like this, we don't particularly want to use a, you can get slight buckling happening if you're using a wet hinge. So this is actually a pressure sensitive tape that is archival and is able to be removed if it needs to come off again in the future. So just two little tabs are going to get put underneath. And then we need to make sure that this particular tape is burnished down well Now, there are a couple of different varieties of that Filmoplast tape. The regular one is just the Filmoplast P90, and this one is actually the P90 Plus. We find that in Queensland the P90 Plus holds up a little bit better than the P90, but there are different uses for each, so consult your picture framer if you're thinking about doing your own framing as to what one's going to be most suitable for you to use. Other alternatives, there are some great products that are out there from Linico or Lineco, depending how you say it, which is like this Abacasa hinging tape, or you've got a Hyako hinging paper, or you've also got one of the gummed hinging tapes. So there are a variety of hinging materials that are used by picture framers, and also down into Japanese papers if you need to actually do some archival work. And that's where it takes a little bit of skill to know what you're doing as to what material you use. So at this point, I'll just turn it back around so you can see what we've got. We have our mat board hinged out of the backing. We've got our certificate hinged, and this is actually just up onto the back of the certificate. So it's able to hang down from the backing, and the backing is supporting the weight of the certificate. That helps with preventing the mat board from buckling over time. So this is why we do it this way. So we like to have the certificate hinged on the backing, and then we like the mat to come over and be hinged that way. So that is basically it matted, ready to go into the frame. We've got our acid-free foam, archival foam backing that is going to go behind that, and that is going to be the external part that will eventually become the back of the frame. So we'll just pop that down for a sec, and we'll come over to the frame itself. So in this example, we've just got a plain black frame with a little silver line. But you can notice, if you notice when I move it around, we got a little bit of a cast of the colour from that light that's over and above us. Well, that light, it's showing that this type of glass is a museum glass. And the idea of using this is it has UV filters built both into the surface and a coating on the inside that is designed to stop the certificate from fading. So particularly different colours fade out a printed material, and something like a degree, you want to use either a conservation type of glass that aids to that protection, or the top end is this museum, which has an anti-reflective coating too. So we normally give that a bit of a clean. We tend to keep it quite clean from the start. We don't want to really be handling a lot of the glass. I always pay attention to all the corners. That's where a lot of the dust gets built up. And one of the tips that, there are different types of cleaning cloths, all microfibers and all sorts of things that people recommend. We like plain cotton. This is one of like a hand towel type cleaning cloth. But then the way I go over it after I've initially cleaned that museum glass, I like to go back to it with some good old, just bog standard toilet paper. Now, this is one of the soft varieties, but most of them are pretty soft. And the reason for that is I can use a small piece of that, and we actually can feel through the thickness of that rather than some of the paper wipes. There are some of branded like Torque wipes that get used, but this is very, very thin. And the reason for that is I can feel when I wipe with my fingers on that, and if the paper sticks anywhere, I know there is dirt. So once it feels like it's actually an ice rink, very, very slippery all over the place, we kind of know that we've got everything off that. We need to do visual inspection, of course, but this is the first step of giving it a clean. Now, there are various anti-static brushes and things that we can use, but in this case, I'm just going to use an air blower hooked up to one of our compressors and give it a little bit of a blow. That is to get me dust off inside the frame. You want to get a little bit of dust off certificate as well. Once I'm happy that they're both clean, I'm going to put them together. And at that point, we're going to put some fixings in. There are different types of fixings. Some people use different varieties. This is just a wide crown stapler. And we're just going to pop some staples in to hold this backing into the frame. And again, we don't need to use too many of these. Sometimes if people want to actually, if you need to get your certificate in and out of the frame, there are various little devices you can use. Often when we're doing things where we want something to come in and out of a frame, is we have things which are called turn buttons. So the turn button is something that looks like this. And what happens is they get put in with a little screw through there, and it can be used to pivot back and forward, and if you needed to take the certificate in and out. But in this case, it's going to be permanently fixed, so we're not needing to use those turn buttons. After we've popped it in, we flip it over, and I got to give it a bit of a clean just to make sure that the face is clean. And in this case, I tend to put the spray straight onto the cloth rather than the glass. We don't want to have anything running underneath the edge of the frame to affect getting, it can dribble down inside. So be careful when you're cleaning your certificates at home. Make sure that you don't just spray haphazardly onto the glass, particularly if you're using some of the premium type glazing. Again, I'll just go over with the toilet paper. Again, it seems to be the softest one. It doesn't scratch anything. So yeah, on there, once I'm happy, if I flip it around, you can see the minor reflection, but once that's actually on the wall, that will be quite anti-reflective. And now we just need to seal that. Some people would use a dust cover. We're going to go in and seal this with just a picture framer's backing tape. This is one of our Japanese ones, the Rinrei tape. But there are some quite nice water. The key for us, of course, is that it's sealed and nothing can get in there. The tape also plays a vital role in providing strength to the overall finished piece. What one are you looking for, Heather? Maybe check with Ting or Anthony, they might be cutting through. So yeah, I'll just go around and I will seal this all up. And then this is a burnishing tool that we just use to seal that down, and that actually keeps the tape very secure. If we use one of the water-based tapes there, that can help with strength in that it pulls the whole frame in together, because over time you don't want the frame itself to bow. So taping the frame is actually an integral part to providing strength to the finished framed item. So yeah, if you are putting your own degree into, say, a ready-made frame, you can do that, and you can upgrade some of the things like the glass. You can always add a good quality mat board to one of those ready-made frames, and they may have those little bendable points that are used to take the picture in and out of the frame. Well, if you once you put your piece in, I would still recommend, if you don't want to get it out, to seal it up. It's going to prevent any insects getting in through that gap, It's also going to give the frame a whole lot more strength and give you a little bit more longevity. I'd say the biggest downside of using a ready-made frame is probably the materials are made for a particular price, and a lot of the time those materials are not archival. So this is why we'd recommend you go down to a professional picture framer, preferably fixer frame of course, and we can help you get your certificate done. So on the back, I'd like to pop a little couple of felt bump-ons. These are designed to stop things going mouldy. It provides an air gap from the wall, so it also prevents dust and things building up along the base of the frame, which adds a lot of moisture to the back of the arrangement. And you don't want moisture in with pictures. It causes buckling, it causes mold and deterioration. That's just our quality assurance checklist. And then we're going to come in and actually fit a hanger to the back. And so we usually put a little wire a third of the way down. So in this case, 6 inches. And then I'm just using a little stainless steel fitting, and we're going to use that with a screw, and we put those on either side. And then we're going to use a stainless steel wire across these. This again is just a nice addition in that stainless doesn't go rusty on you. You're going to have something that lasts over time, because a few cents on quality fittings makes a lot of difference to how things last. And we're all about having picture frames that are designed to last. So in this case, this is just a hand-tied stainless. We come out of the ring. You might have seen that knot before. A lot of people comment on this knot, but it's out of the ring, around itself, and back down into the ring again. And what that does, that forms like a slip knot right on that ring itself. So then we cut a length of wire that's a little bit longer than what we need. And we like to make the wire reasonably slack, and that helps with controlling how much force is on the fitting points. Less force when it's at 33 degrees. And of course you can do that by hanging on 2 hooks, raising that angle, or if you have loose wire and someone hangs it on 1 hook, at least they're raising this angle, which is going to reduce the force on everything. So I just give that a good tug just to make sure it's right. And what we have there, just come back up. How do we go? Yeah, so what we got there is 1 degree certificate, frame with museum glass. It's looking pretty good. We'll make sure it's all clean. We'll wrap it up. We can call the lucky recipient of this, who can then proudly hang it in their office. So thanks for joining me today. We'll catch you next time when we broadcast live from Fixer Frame at Mount Gravatt. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us today.